What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I'm Daniel Oyefusi. That's David Neal. Thanks so much for tuning in. Quick reminder before we start, make sure to subscribe to the Miami Herald YouTube page, like, share, comment below. Also, subscribe to the Miami Herald so you can stay up to date on all of our content, not just sports, but everything going on in South Florida.
We can pay our rent.
That too, which is very important. So a very busy past couple of days for the Miami Dolphins. Haven't played in about a week. Obviously, they had the short week on Thursday night, which, as we all know, was a 27-15 loss to the Cincinnati Bengals, their first loss of the season. But much more important news coming out of that. Obviously, the scary incident involving Tua Tagovailoa, in which he sustained a concussion, had to be carted off on a stretcher. He was released from a local hospital that night, had consciousness, the team said, movement in all his extremities. He's since returned to South Florida and has undergone various tests, MRIs, CAT scans came clean, but he's been ruled out for Sunday's game against the New York Jets. Now, obviously, there's a much even greater matter to that than just his concussion, his head injury that he sustained against the Bengals. This came right, 4 days 4 days after he hit his head against the Bills on September 25th. He stumbled upon returning to his feet, and he was evaluated for a head injury, at halftime, but he was allowed to return. He was cleared to return to the game, which he did in the Bills game. Obviously, they went on to win that game. The NFLPA, the Players Union, they had already initiated an investigation into the handling of Tua's injury after the Bills or during the Bills game. But obviously, the scary incident this past Thursday sparked widespread questions about the handling of Tua's injury, concussions, the league and NFLPA's concussion protocol. And that's where we have to start today. I've written a ton of stories about the developments. The NFL and NFLPA spoke to Tua Tuesday, and they're hoping that they can wrap up this review in the next couple of days and make those findings public to everyone, so there's transparency. But for me, I'll start with this. I know there's been a lot of frustration on both sides. I don't know if you can say necessarily both sides, but there's been a lot of frustration from different facets of this topic. We have a lot of people who are saying that the Dolphins followed all proper protocols. He was cleared. He didn't have a head injury. There was no reason to hold him out from the Thursday night game. And then you have a large segment of people as well, maybe an equally sized segment of the population that's saying, I know what I saw with my eyes. We saw somebody that had a hit to the head. They stumbled. That should be enough to know that they sustained a concussion. There's been a lot of finger pointing in the past couple of days. A lot of people looking at somebody else to blame, to place the blame on in this situation. I'm not going to do that. That's how I'll start this. I'm not going to do that. Because for me personally, as a reporter, as somebody who was in the locker room and was in the interview room the days following, I feel like it'd be a little hypocritical on my part to do it. I mean, I even went back and listened to what we said about last week, and we really didn't touch too much on to his head injury. I mean, they characterized it as a back injury. They said it's the back injury that caused him to stumble. So, I mean, I took their word for it because, that's all we have. We have their word. What I'll say is that these issues are not black and white. I always love the phrase, I'll say everything is an absolute. There's nuance to subjects, and we have to handle and discuss them with nuance. Did Tua sustain a concussion on Sunday against the Bills? I don't know. And anyone that's saying he did, even despite what your eyes saw, the stumbling, it's not being genuine because we don't know. The only people that know are the people that were in there evaluating Tua with Tua. I mean, maybe even Tua doesn't know. There's still a lot that we're learning about concussions, a lot that we don't know about concussions. So to say that Tua had a concussion, I feel like it's a little bit disingenuous, following the Bills game. However, I will acknowledge that the optics did not look good. That's one thing that you can say. I mean, I don't think anybody can argue with that, whether you believe he had a concussion or not. To see him hit his head, to grab his helmet as if he's kind of shaking the cobwebs, and then to stumble, I mean, I know in real time, I thought that's a concussion. In real time, that's what I thought. Because I mean, that's you see stuff like that where people get knocked, they get their bell rung, they're a little woozy, and you see them kind of stumble. I thought, yeah, he might have a concussion. And when the team initially listed him as questionable to return with the head injury, I thought concussion. I thought Tua's not coming back out here. He's not going to be ready for the Thursday night game because we know that it usually takes a couple of days, sometimes a week, sometimes more for people to get back from a head injury. But obviously, they said it was a back injury. They went on. He was able to play on Thursday, and we saw what happened there. At this point, again, I'm not going to point blame because even up to Thursday night when the game was starting, I even said to somebody, I was like, well, why is it still a topic? I mean, they said it's a back injury. Why are we still discussing it as if he sustained a concussion? So again, I can't be in a position to point blame and finger point and say this is what they should not have done. Obviously, Mike McDaniel has taken a lot of heat for his comments in the following days. I'm not going to pile on him because, again, in his position, if I'm putting myself in his shoes, if he thinks that the Dolphins and their medical staff and the unaffiliated neuro trauma consultant who's actually been fired, we can get into that later. If he believes that they all handled the protocol correctly, he as head coach is in no position to say, yeah, I think we should have done something different, because that's essentially an admission of guilt. Now, this review is still going on. We're going to figure out, or hopefully figure out, what exactly happened. The NFL and the union have already gone, taking steps to try to close this loophole that allowed Tua to come back into the game. It's clear. I mean, from my perspective, it's clear on Sunday there was definitely a heightened sensitivity to it. Seems like a lot more guys were being taken out of games to be evaluated for a concussion. But we'll see what happens. I'm not going to be in a rush to judgment and say this person is at fault, this person is not at fault. If anything, I hope this is a position or a situation where, unfortunately, at the harm of at Tua's harm, but I'm hoping that now we can, continue to take head injuries and concussions a little more seriously, have a little more heightened sensitivity to it. Because I think that it's such it's so ingrained into our game that a lot of times we see it and it occurs and we're like, okay, let's just move on. But I mean, these are long lasting ramifications that can occur from head injury. So again, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, maybe we'll get some answers later this week. Next week, we can go from there. But I mean, this is a nuanced topic. And, I think the most important thing now is that obviously Tua is okay. He's not going to play on Sunday, but it looks like he's good to return sometime this season. And we'll see, how we can better the process, better the protocols so that, something like this maybe doesn't happen again.
First off, I think, you having to cover the team and having to opine on this is very dicey from a journalistic perspective. So, I don't think anybody should expect you to take a strong stance in any direction, because you have to cover this every day. And, you have to cover it as things are happening. And, that's somebody else's job to be, to point fingers and be judgy. Somebody like me. And but I'm not going to point fingers and be judgy. I am going to say, look, what he suffered on that Sunday was a concussion against the Bills. I mean, that was frankly, that's obvious. I mean, and I heard Brady Quinn a couple days later on the Hockman and Crowder radio show, which is the only thing that makes running to and sitting in the pickup line tolerable. Brady Quinn was saying, he's like, yeah, there's times where you basically have to talk. You have to say, oh, it's my back, it's something else, or you're not going to play, and you want to play. You want to be out there playing. Tua has been through a lot of injuries and everything, but this man wants to play badly, and they all do. Almost all the players in all the athletes that we watch, 95% of them want to play badly, incredibly badly, and will do anything to get on the field. And if that means, that means hiding concussion symptoms or kind of tacitly agreeing, yeah, it was my back. Yeah, that's why that's why I looked a little stumbly there, it was because my back was wrenched and there everything. Uh, you know, I, I've I covered sports for 27 years. I saw a lot of back injuries. I didn't see a single one that looked like somebody just got hit upside the head by Sonny Liston. And you know, should he have been allowed to play in the second half against Buffalo? I mean, and which this has happened before in NFL history. It will happen again, where a player, we call it getting his bell rung or whatever, you know, and they go in at halftime, the player, kind of, cons, flim flams, whatever, hides the symptoms, whatever. The player does what he needs to do, says what he needs to say to get back on the field. Or, let's just say certain team doctors. Sean Payton was saying this the other night. I saw on a pregame show. Not all team doctors, not all the guys who are created equal. Not all the independent doctors who work with the teams rather are created equal. And he said he would go to the other guys and say, "Hey, how strict are your guys?" He said there were some teams who were saying, "Yeah, our guys are real. Don't slur a sentence and don't do anything. You've been taken out of the game." And there were other people who were a little fast and a little more laissez-faire with how they handled the protocols. Wasn't there, don't know. I just know what I covered football and hockey, two heavily high contact sports, for a long time. I saw guys get knocked out. I saw guys get concussions. I saw guys get badly concussed. I saw career-ending concussions. What I saw from Tua with the Bills, to me, that was, that I was like, yeah, that's a concussion. But just was. You can call it what you want. You can dress it up however you want. You don't believe, the Dolphins are kind of pulling the, you're going to believe us or your lying eyes. Should he have played Thursday? I don't know, but it was a football play right on the edge that I was a little surprised they didn't throw a flag.
Oh, really? On the hit?
What?
On the sack that
on the hit. Did they throw a flag on that one?
I don't believe they did. No,
they didn't. They didn't.
No.
They didn't. And I was because I remember being like, that's not a penalty, because that was a penalty back in the 80s. Okay.
Yeah, the kind of
that was, he kind of, he whipped him down, and
it wasn't like we said, they didn't call a penalty on it. It wasn't really a wind up, kind of like the picking up. It wasn't kind of like he picked him up. He was on the ground, and as he had a hold of him, obviously there were a lot of people that pointed out that maybe that's not the play that should be allowed. But even we asked Christian Wilkins about it, and he said, "Hey, I mean, it's a tough job sometimes with the defensive lineman to bring the quarterback down as well. So it's like it is still a physical game and whatnot."
And there is the basis of kind of the problem that the NFL and college football and high school football are going to deal with.
It's still a violent game. At its core, it's a violent game.
Yeah, this is football. You have ever larger, faster, more athletic people running into each other, with their feet planted. That's why that's why it's more damaging sport than hockey, where you're actually hitting each other at higher speed, but you're not planted on that ice. Your feet aren't planted. You go flying into the boards, or flying into the glass. It looks more spectacular, but it actually isn't as damaging to your body as a lot of hits you see every single week in the NFL. And there is, I don't know, it was a football play. He got hurt, and it was scary to look at. When those hands went up and what they call the fencing motion, that was hard to look at. And on the flip side, I do not blame Amazon or whoever was in charge. Well, it was Amazon is the medium, but whoever's in the
Prime
truck,
Video, yeah,
whoever's in the truck doing the broadcast, I have no problem with them showing that replay multiple times, because that's a football play. That's a reality of football. This was not the Joe Theismann leg break or some other things that were just kind of freak accidents. This is football. And, I think they have to be, now that he has, clearly suffered a concussion, and whether you want to call it the first one, 1.5, 2, whatever, in a very short span, they have to be very careful with him, because this is the kind of thing that ends careers. And it's the kind of thing that gives people long-term problems.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is football. This is what's going to happen. He is a competitor. He's not going to put himself in stupid situations, but I guarantee you, he is not going to he's going to do what it takes, what he believes it takes to win a game. And at some point, you're going to need a first down. He's going to need to hang in that pocket one more second, which, he hung in the pocket way too many seconds on that one play. That was something else somebody else said, hey, that's why you throw the ball away. But he's going to hang in there. He's going to try to make the play, and he's going to take a hit. And he's going to take some big hits and some hard hits. And I think he's, again, just from covering this for these type of injuries for a very long time, for 30 years at one point. Not a doctor, but from what I've seen, he might be one hit from being done. And his football career being done, not like, done, Charles Adams done. And, that's just a reality of the game. And as far as the NFL's protocols, I always find it interesting in sports, especially the dangerous ones, that there's always this, okay, how much can we really make things safer? Can we really do things better? And then something happens, and it's amazing how quickly they find ways to do things better.
It's like, it's what you see is, in a lot of times, like in society, tragedy sparks change quicker than maybe just any random petition. So again, that's why it's unfortunate that this had to happen, for people to start looking at the protocols. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't even know a lot of these. I didn't know about the SCAT test and the baseline test that they compare your test to. Like I didn't know about all that, but again, to your point, it's like, why is it that something scary and traumatizing like this has to happen for us to kind of like look at the rules and say, wait, this isn't making sense. Let's get this out. Now, again, you hope that, this can be a way to, and like McDaniel said, like Mike McDaniel said, this can help one extra player. If the closing the loophole does that, then perfect. But it's not that we should have that, Tua has to be carted off on a stretcher, or, all this attention is applied on it to then to say, oh, wait, maybe we should change this. A lot of it is maybe a little bit of pandering, a little bit of saving face. But it shouldn't be that something traumatic happens, then we start to look for change. I mean, this should be proactive, not reactive.
It should be, but that's look, it's been this way. It's been this way across sports for forever, really forever. I'm from Indianapolis. People who follow my stories know at the end of the story that the one day I don't work is the Indy 500. They used to build, the fans in the infield, the Indy 500 used to build huge scaffoldings, like stories high scaffoldings to watch the race from. And they would sometimes base them like in the back of a pickup truck, not even on the ground. Well, what do you think happened one year? Finally, in 1960, one of the scaffoldings collapsed. A bunch of people died, and then they said, "Oh, yeah, no more scaffoldings." Like it really took that. It really took that to say, "Hey, no more scaffoldings. You can't do this anymore." It so I mean, it's you look through sports history, and that's even our societal history, non-sports history. That's the way it happens. It's something really bad, and it's like, oh yeah, that probably wasn't a good idea. Yeah, that safety, you know, that safety issue, that safety mechanism that we were kicking around for a while. Yeah, maybe we ought to actually use it. Maybe it's worth the money. Okay. So, but it's a violent game. Um, it's a violent game. And we like the big hits. All of us do. It appeals to something in it. If we didn't, we just don't want to see the consequences, but that's not real.
Yeah.
So
it's the reality of reality of the sport, and the reality of head injuries and concussions is we still don't know. I spoke to a neurosurgeon for one of the stories I wrote. He was like, we've learned more in the past decade plus, but there's still a lot that we don't know, because it's like there's a lot of guys. He said there's a lot of guys who they don't have the fencing response, and they don't respond the way we saw. They don't look like the way like we saw Tua look on Thursday night, but they're still getting trauma to the head. And it's like that accumulation of hits, that piles up, and it's like some guys are affected differently. Some guys, it's affected maybe by their genetics, their makeup. Like we just don't know. But like I said earlier, the good thing is that Tua has been around the practice facility. He's been able to talk to family and friends. They say he's in good spirits. Obviously, he's not going to play this Sunday against the Jets, but the hope is that McDaniel didn't put a timeline on his return, but the hope is obviously that he returns at some point once he's all good to go. So that's obviously great news. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back on the other side of things, we're going to talk about the Dolphins' upcoming game. After 3 straight wins to open the season, they're on the schneid, so they gotta get off of it. Can they do it against the Jets?
They lost one game.
Okay, so maybe not the schneid, but they gotta turn things around. Get that winning streak back. So we're gonna see if they can do that. So stay locked with us. What's going on, everybody? Still here with David Neal, talking all things Dolphins. And like I said before, the Dolphins will be back at it on Sunday. They got a little bit of a mini break after the short week playing in Cincinnati, but they're back on the road, headed to New Jersey, not New York, to play their division rival, the New York Jets. The Jets, a surprising 2-2 comeback win over the Steelers, who might not really be that good, but 2-2 is 2-2. That's better than a lot of starts for the Jets. And the Dolphins will be trying to stay atop the AFC East, with a big division win. But they're gonna have to do it without Tua, obviously, who has been ruled out. Mike McDaniel got ahead of the news. He said he's not gonna play on Sunday. He announced that Monday. So Teddy Bridgewater, the hometown kid, will be starting, making his first start as a Dolphin. Obviously, the Dolphins signed him to a deal in free agency, signed him to be the backup. He stepped in for Tua after he suffered that concussion. Pretty solid, I would say. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was didn't really have my eyes on the game in a real time. I had to rewatch the game because obviously I was, writing up the news on Tua, just trying to get updates there. But I rewatched the game, and I thought I thought Teddy was solid given the circumstances. 14-23, one touchdown, obviously an interception that kind of stifled that go-ahead drive late in the game. But I mean, he gave them the lead 15-14. He threw a beautiful 64-yard pass to Tyreek Hill that set them up for the field goal to take the lead. And I say I thought he was solid given the circumstances, because this is a guy who was asked to come into the game and lead the first team offense off 4 days of rest, 3 walkthrough practices, which I'm pretty sure he was not getting a ton of reps. I'm sure he hasn't gotten a ton of reps in the past month, of the regular season. And he on the road, given the circumstances, he had the Dolphins in it right up until the last minutes. Obviously, the team has said that they have a lot of faith, a lot of confidence in Teddy. He's going to get the entire week's worth of practice reps, so he gets a little bit more comfortable with his receivers, with the offensive line. I see it as a situation where, if you want to look at the advanced metrics and whatnot, Teddy essentially gave you like average starting quarterback play on Thursday. With 10 days of preparation, can he give you a little bit better? Can he be a little more crisp? I think he can. Obviously Tua has, played extremely well, played great in the first month of the season. He's one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL, atop a lot of the statistical categories. So you're not really asking Teddy to do that, but can he kind of hold down the fort? I mean, if you get a good running game, and we saw Raheem Mostert break off some runs, if you get some solid pass blocking, which is going to need to improve, and then you still have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and I feel like that's what really makes this offense run. I think that, as I said in my film study story that's on Miami Herald's website, they can be functional, if not explosive at times. Obviously, I don't think they're going to get as many of the big plays. He's not as accurate as Tua, but, I think his arm is just as strong as Tua, if not maybe a little bit stronger, a little bit weaker. I mean, it's around the same strength. He obviously showed he can make some big passes. I think it's a situation where you might have a drop off, but you can still win this game. I'll put it that way. I mean, that's what you need Teddy to do. You need him to win this game, potentially win a game next week, and then we'll see when Tua comes back. I think Teddy can do that. What do you think?
Didn't we have this conversation last week?
We may have
that same conversation last week.
Deja vu. This may be deja vu.
What happens if Tua gets injured and Teddy's got to come in and play against the Bengals? And Nostradamus us, Teddy came in and did what Teddy does. I thought that was exactly what you expect from him. And I mean, yeah, now he's going to have a full week of reps with everybody. He knows going in, he's playing, he's starting the game. He's a, veteran quarterback. He's been in all situations, regular season situations at least. And so, yeah, playing against the Jets, even a decent Jets team, this is not anything that's going to scare him, anything that's going to fluster him. I don't see him being flustered, period, in any situation. He's going to be, I think he can be what he was. He's not gonna win the game. Probably not gonna win the game for you. He's probably not gonna lose the game for you.
But you might not need him. You might not need him to do that.
And again, if you think the Dolphins can turn over the Jets and Zach Wilson a couple times, which I think they can, create more turnovers than Pepperidge Farm against these boys, then, that's going to be enough for the Dolphins to, I think, get out of this with a win. I think he's going to be fine. And this is exactly, they didn't expect to be a concussion, but I guarantee you when they signed
this is the reason, they signed Teddy thinking like, if something happens.
This is his raison d'etre. This is exactly what they were thinking about. This is exactly why they signed him. And so, okay, you signed him. You got the insurance policy. Guess what?
Break glass in case of emergency.
Right. And this is Allstate. This is not some fly-by-night insurance company. So, you're in good hands. Yeah. So, I think that he can definitely get them through a game against the Jets. He almost got them through a game against the Bengals.
He did. I mean, they had the lead 15-14 late in the third quarter, into the fourth quarter. they rallied around him so to speak. I mean, the
Right.
defense was playing a little bit better. Obviously they had an injury to X, which I think that really in my eyes broke things down.
Yeah.
The injury to X, I mean, that is a dynamic dynamic wide receiver core, and we spoke about that last week, how there might be plays to be made on the Bengal side, and they were.
And there
They
were,
got, yeah,
one big one.
yeah, I mean,
A
yeah,
couple big ones. Couple big ones,
they
but
got the one to T Higgins over X, and then he left with the groin injury in the third quarter, and then after that again, it just wasn't the same. Like the pass rush wasn't really there. The guys trying to cover. I mean, at some point, it's like we always talk about the coaching and whatnot, but you got to have the guys out there.
yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
when you don't have your top two cornerbacks on the field, I mean, that's what's going to happen. So obviously, that's something to monitor with X. Can he play? The Jets do have a pretty solid wide receiver core with Elijah Moore, a local kid. They got Garrett Wilson, Braxton Berrios. I believe he's another local guy. They have a solid wide receiver core, and we saw them make some plays last year. But if I'm the Dolphins defense, if I'm looking at the Dolphins defense, this is a game where, I mean, without Tua Tagovailoa, Mike McDaniel was said this is the defensive team until proven otherwise. This is a game where you got to prove it. I mean, the stats haven't been good. Statistically, they're one of the worst defenses in the NFL. But I think maybe that's a little bit skewed by some of the quarterbacks they've played. You're playing Zach Wilson. He may have had some bright moments in the last game, him coming back, but he still turned the ball over a little bit. That's still a matchup where you got to take advantage of his inexperience, and you got to turn the ball over. You can't allow those big plays. And you got to make it easier for Teddy on that offense. I mean, they still do have Tyreek and Jalen and the running backs and the offensive line, but this isn't a game where you should be allowing it to be a shootout. I mean, in my estimate, this is like a first one of like 21 wins. I mean, that's what it should be. You got to keep it low and make sure and kind of keep the margin for error wide, where maybe if Teddy does turn the ball over once, or if they are having trouble with the timing, they can lean on the defense to kind of set them up with a short field, maybe get a defensive touchdown, something like that. This is a game where the defense has to step up a little bit more than they have the first month of the season.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's definitely a game where you challenge. If you're if you're a head coach, if you're a defensive coordinator, or any kind of defensive assistant, you challenge your guys. You say, hey, y'all supposed to be all this. You think you're all this. You're gonna want to get paid like you're all this. Well,
you gotta show it.
This is the game where you show it. This is one of the games where you show it.
Yeah, this is the game where they I don't want to say they should dominate, because that's tough, but they should. It's got to look more like the Patriots game than it's looked like the past three games.
Right, and you showed something against the Bills. They had a lot of plays, but they didn't get a lot of points. And this is a different kind of thing where you got to show it here. You have to, at times you got to you got to pick the team up and say, hey, okay, we got this. And we'll be the engine today. And I think they definitely can. They definitely can. I think they can. And yeah, okay, it's tough in the NFL today to play defense, but have you seen some of these stinkers that have been out there? I mean, so see some of these offensive stinkers that have been out there, and like 11-10, really?
There's been some nasty offensive football out there the first month.
Oh,
teams are still in preseason, to put it kindly.
Oh my goodness, there's been some ugly ones, and the Rams last night. That's exactly why, the Rams is defending Super Bowl champions. I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah. I appreciate they won the Super Bowl last year, but that's a fine achievement, a great achievement, and celebrate and everything. I'm happy for Matthew Stafford that he got an AT&T commercial, but. Okay, I'm not sitting there looking at them thinking these guys are going to be a problem for a long time. No, I really, they stunk. San Francisco stunk it up. But there are certain teams that are just. There's been some bad offensive football.
Yeah, some bad football for sure.
Played this year. So you know what? Yeah, I have no problem with a coach, and I would hope a coach would. Say to the Dolphins defense, hey,
this is your game.
Let's make the Jets look like a giant fart this week, and and let's get hold them to 10 points or 11 points or some single digits, or two scores maybe, or something like that, and turn them over, and give Zach, stop all this Zach Wilson talk that is going to go be off the charts if they win this game, because it's the New York, it's the Jets, and it's the
Just, yeah, big media market. I mean, that's just how reactions go both ways. So yeah,
but and but yeah, all respect to what they might be building at the Jets, I don't think this is a game. This is a game that the Dolphins should win. And yeah, it should look similar to game one.
Yeah. Well, like you said, this is a game the Dolphins should win. I'm going to say this is a game the Dolphins will win. Again, I think that it's going to be a low scoring game. Again, I think Teddy can move the offense. Can it result in a lot of touchdowns, the touchdowns that we've seen over the past couple of weeks? I'm not sure. But I do think that the Dolphins win a close, low scoring game, and the defense, keeps the Jets at bay. Dolphins move to 4-1. All is good in South Florida. What do you think?
I'll go 24-13.
Okay. So two score game.
Yeah, 2-score game. Yeah. And I think they, defense gives it, either gives them a short field or gets something, gets a cheap score. And I think the defense does the job, does what they need to do. And that's what's happened. That happened against New England. That happened against Buffalo. Against Baltimore, they just got a couple stops when they needed it. Mm-hmm. But that's one thing about the Dolphins also. If you look at their 3 wins, that there are 3 different types of wins, and there's a lot of I don't know if it's technically complementary football, but they're the kind of games where you say, okay, even if one side didn't seem like it contributed a lot more than the other side, all sides, the offense and the defense had something to do with it. I mean, the defense had to step up against the Ravens in the second half, or else the Ravens would have had 70. They were on pace for what? They were on pace for those old-fashioned Nebraska scores, but the defense had to step up and make some stops, especially that 4th down. And the New England and Buffalo games, the offense, did what it needed to do. The defense hung it, a little more dominant against New England, but against Buffalo, short field, hung in there, made the stops they needed to. There's it just feels like a lot of complementary football, which is what you want to see out of a team. And so I want to see that going forward. I remember 1,000 years ago, Dallas was really good one year, and somebody said, the problem with Dallas is they're a great offense and they're a great defense, but they're not a great team. And funny enough, that was like that year they went in the playoffs. Everybody was picking them to win the Super Bowl, and they lost in the first round. And that's kind of, I always think of that when I see, these kind of situations. And I think the Dolphins are they're a very good defense most of the time. They're pretty good still getting it together. Offense, they're explosive, but they're still getting it together. Potentially very good offense, but they are playing complementary football. And, with the exception of a butt punt, everybody's involved.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, you need the complementary football. You need the timely contributions. And again, this is one of those games where you're probably not going to be able to lean on the offense. So maybe you do need the defense, and maybe even the special teams a little bit more to really have an emergence and to contribute if you want to come away with a win. We're going to see how that develops on Sunday afternoon in New Jersey at MetLife Stadium. It should be a good one. After 10 days, the Dolphins are back in action. And we'll be back next week to recap all of that. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Enjoy the game. Until then, you guys take care. See you.